What I'd like to do here is to go through the slides and do some demos as we go through the slides on a virtual machine. This chapter is about server and network monitoring. After we've done all the configurations, set up the security and everything that we need to monitor what's going on with our servers, because that's where we're going to find the issues. And there are a number of tools that Microsoft provides that are very useful in monitoring these systems. You can also obviously go out and buy a lot of third-party ones, and I think what you'll find out is a number of the third-party tools actually put a real nice wrapper onto the Microsoft tools. So the objectives of this one: understand the importance of server monitoring, and hopefully by this point you got that. Monitor server services and solve problems with the services. Are the services starting? How do we see when they're starting? Can we stop them? How do we configure the services to start automatically? You can also configure the services to have a delayed start so that everything's not trying to beat up on your computer as Windows starts, because Windows has a tendency to try to just kill everything. I've got a laptop that seems like it just takes an eternity for everything to get started. Once it gets started, it's okay, but I might as well start the machine, go away for about 10 minutes, and then come back and then say, okay, now you're going to let me do something that I want to do. Use the task manager for server monitoring. You've probably done that before. Configure and use a performance monitor, which you may or may not have used, and it has quite a bit of flexibility. We can use it to monitor our local machine, or we can monitor remote machines with it. And then set up and use data collector sets for performance and diagnostic information. What a data collector set does is takes the performance monitor information and puts it in a file so that you can go back later and do an analysis of it. You can do things like put it in Excel, chart it, and see what's going on, give yourself a visual of what it is. Use the reliability monitor, kind of a neat thing that's been added, allows us to go see when things changed, and implement the SNMP service for network management. That's just basically a matter of turning it on. So the reason to monitor: establish a baseline for performance. If we don't know what's right, then we have an issue at times knowing when something is actually wrong. So the first thing is to establish the baselines. What does the system look like when everything is right? Baselines typically typically done right after the system is installed, so that you know what it's like without all of the added overhead that goes on with these things. Problems are more easily identified, and again, how do we know if it's wrong when we don't know what's right? And a lot of times I like to kind of compare that to maybe gas mileage of your car. If you didn't know what it was and all of a sudden you say, I think I'm using a lot more gasoline than I used to. If you didn't know what you were using before, maybe you're just driving more. Maybe something else is going on. Maybe there is something wrong. Maybe the car needs a tune-up. Maybe there's a fuel leak someplace. Those are the kinds of things that you can kind of think about baselining a machine. Why do we want to baseline the machine? And then what's right and what's wrong. Even after we baseline, do the benchmarks or baselines, you've got to come back and kind of monitor what's going on. And that's what these tools are about. Once we've established the baseline, take a look at it on a regular basis. What's going on with my machine? What's changed? Has anything changed? Is it still working the way that it used to? Some sample benchmarks, benchmarks of disk activity, and we've found over the years that disk utilization is one of our big issues, particularly when we get into virtual machines. CPU goes up and down. CPUs are generally powerful enough in today's machines that, yeah, you're going to have spikes. It's going to spike to 100%. It's going to go down and idle around 1 or 2% for most of its life. How much memory do we need? That's something, as you remember from computer configuration, that when the hard drive starts beating itself to death, then you probably need more memory, and you can monitor how much memory is being used in these machines with the tools that are available. The network response: is it a problem? And yeah, occasionally it is, but if you think about what's going on, and it's typically the internet's slow. Well, the internet's probably going to be your slowest component of all of these things. depending on what you're doing with the system, how much connectivity do you actually need. If we're using a nice SCSI connection, then we're probably going to be into the gigabit, not probably, we want to be into the gigabit connection so that we can transfer the data. Slow typical heavy usage of disk, CPU, and memory are what's going to slow the system down. What these systems, once we've established the baseline, do, what these tools allow us to do is to see what's changed. Has anything changed? What's taking that resource? Is it something that, yes, we put on, no, it kind of just popped up, maybe we've got a virus, maybe we've got a malware of some kind. What is taking the system resource? Server services, Active Directory domain services, the things that we can monitor here. Computer browser keeps a listing of the computers. The domain services enables Active Directory for the network, must be running to enable users to log on to the network when Active Directory is installed. Active Directory central management of users, central authentication server. DHCP, we're going to give out the IP information, and we'll say it obviously is more than just an IP address. DNS, file replication, intersite messaging, IPsec, a number of different things that are available here to monitor the server services. These actually are the services that we may need or want to monitor. More, and this list is in the book, so you can take a look at them. The server services, through the server manager, the computer management tool, the status column indicates the current status of the service: started, paused, blank, halted, not started. So the server services we can look at, and this is what it's going to look at. I'm going to pause this for a second, bring a machine in so that we can look at this thing on. Okay, so this says that we can access the services through the server manager or through the computer management tool. You can also access it through the services MSC. Let me get rid of this. We'll go over here. I have a virtual machine going here. Let me see if I can get the start menu in here. So what we have, server manager, we can open server manager and go into the configuration, and we have the services, which is going to list the services that are available. We have extended and standard. In the extended, if I click on something, it tells me what. You have a description out here to the left. I also have a stop and a restart. This one is started, so it has a stop and a restart. If I go down here to the application information, it tells me what it is. I have the ability to start it. I can also right click on it and start it. I'm going to go to the standard here in a minute. You notice when I go to standard, I don't have the description out there on the left, but there is a description column for each of these things. And if I right click on any of them, I can start it. If I go to the properties, log on, what the service is going to log on as: local services, a number of different things that are available. Recovery dependencies, if there are any dependencies, something, this one has none, but something that must start before it does. It's dependent on certain services. In the general tab, we have a startup type. Manual means I'm actually going to have to right click on it, tell it to start. The other options here are disabled. Actually, let me go back, revisit manual a little bit. We can start it manually. It can also be started by other services. Disable means that it's not going to start. That service is disabled. If you don't want it to run at all, service needs to be disabled. The other is automatic, which should start when Windows starts, and then automatic delayed. A delayed start allows the system, the service to start up but not get into the let Windows beat me up, let Windows beat my machine up when it starts up. We can do the start here, so there are a number of different ways to start these things. We'll get out of it. So this was in the server manager. We can also go into the computer management console, and the services are going to be there also. So we go here, device manager, task scheduler, reliability, storage, services and applications. We go down here and we have our services. Routing, remote access, you see, is on this thing. This is a domain controller, so we can go into the services. We're going to get the same functionality. One of the things, while I've got this MMC open, that you can do, we have the more actions over here, and the more actions in this case is just the same as right-clicking it or what's in the left-hand column. If we want more space on the desktop, we can turn that column off up here by clicking on this icon and turning that particular window off and on. Gives you a little bit more space here, and again, if you don't want to see the descriptions out here on the left, click on standard and we have even more ability to do that, and we can turn all of them off or on depending on what we want to do with these things. So we have that. We should also be able to go here and type in services.msc, and we get the services come up through the search menu. So we can in fact start the services a number of different ways. Same MMC regardless of how we start the system. Okay, I'm going to pause here a second, get the machine out of the way, and go back to the PowerPoint. Okay, so we have looked at those things. I started, paused, blanked, and those were in there. As you go through the system, you should be able to see those. What the console looks like. Check the status of a service. Did it start? Does it have a dependency and it's not starting? There are a number of things that will allow you to do that. We can pause a service, takes it offline for normal users. Can only be used by administrators or server operators, the pausing of the service. Server manager, see, we looked at those. Dependencies, we didn't actually look at anything that had a dependency. Let me bring it back over and see if we can find one of those. So let's just pick base filtering and engine. It's started, so its dependencies would be showing up on this thing. We could stop it here, restart it, and again, the blank it's talking about is in the status column. It's going to be started, stopped, or see this one. We can start it. Actually, let's do one. Let's start the process. Started here. It's a manual. We can stop it. And when we stop it, we get the blank. Nothing really all that dramatic about any of those things. Base filtering engine, let's go into the properties. Dependencies, when we go in here, it says the RPC server has to be started. DCOM services, and we keep opening these things up. Dependencies are there. The following system components depend on this service. So not only does it have services that it depends on when it's started, or there are other services that depend upon it for it to be started. So we have those, and this one started. It's an automatic service. It was already running. Okay, let's go back to the PowerPoint here for a few minutes. Okay, so dependencies in the machine look just like the dependencies look here on the slide. The task manager, monitor applications, task manager processes that are running on the server. I want to go through some things, and we'll open up the task manager, go through the slides, and then we'll look at all the elements of the task manager together. The task manager is going to tell us what's running. It's going to give us a real-time snapshot of what's going on with the system. Control-Alt-Delete, and then we start the task manager. We're going to have the 4 tabs that we'll see: applications, processes, services, performance, networking, and then users. Things that we can do with those. What I'm going to do here, the applications tab, we'll take a look at each of these things, monitoring the processes that are available there. Setting priorities, which we can do if we want to. The administrator can change the priority, and we'll take a look at that. On certain things, you really can't change the priority on any of the system stuff, I think, and we'll give that a shot, see if it'll let us do any of those things. And then we can monitor services, management options of the task manager, number of different things. Start a service, stop a service, go to process. We can do a number of things from the task manager. It's been improved, added to, bigger system than we had before. And then the performance tab, the CPU and memory performance, usage bars. A handle shows the handles and the threads. The handle is the resource used by the program, having its own identification, so the program is able to access it, and then threads are blocks of code within the program. Monitoring real-time. Physical memory, and this I think is in the book. It's kind of something that you probably want to take a look at. these things. What do each of these mean when we do them? So take a look at that, the amount of RAM for file caching, the amount of RAM installed. A physical memory free is available to be used. The kernel memory page total. Page memory, as you recall, page is when we map disk space to look like memory. So we have those capabilities in the system. Okay, so I'll go down. Resource monitor, monitoring real-time performance. It's something that CPU disk network. It's something that's enhanced that gives this system a much better look, more flexibility, better isolation, a greater ability to be able to identify which element is causing our bottleneck. And that's what that one's going to look at, networking tab, and again we'll look at that. Let's see, what do we got here? Monitoring network performance, monitoring users, and then the performance monitor. We'll go ahead and look at these and then go through all of those. Capturing data with the performance monitor, that's what we're going to do whenever we want to save the data and go back and be able to analyze it, or maybe create a historic map with these things. Performance and reliability monitor are all in here, and we'll take a look at how to add to these things. The instances, the add button, the different looks that you can have with these things, the status information of them, the commonly monitored components. There are a lot of different components, instances that we can monitor with this thing. And then data collector sets are what allow us to save it to disk, and then it's part of the performance monitor. We can create data collector sets to record data at specified intervals or over a specific set of time when we want to see, monitor, find out something that may be going wrong with our system, and the different ways to display that information. There are templates to do this with, predefined collector sets, a number of different systems to do that. I'll do a separate video on doing the data collector sets, because it's kind of a different thing. The reliability performance monitor will look at what it tells you is when things happen, basically, so that you can go back and say, oh yeah, this happened on that day, because all of us are really good at recording what's going on and at keeping logs of the system. So yeah, we never remember what happened. Something did happen at some point in time. What did we do on that particular day? And the SNMP service, again, basically it's just a matter of installing it if you're going to use that thing. What I'm going to do right now is pause this thing and bring the machine back in, and let's take a look at the task manager, the performance monitor, and the resource monitor. Okay, the Windows Task Manager has been around forever, as we all remember. I'm going to close some of these things down here. To get into it, we can just right-click, Task Manager, Control-Alt-Delete, a number of different ways to get into the system. The tabs that they talked about, application, what applications are running if an application's got a problem. If we want to bring it to the front, minimize, maximize, into task, create a dump file, or we can go to the process. Let's try that one. See, we go to the process and it's running on an MMC, a Microsoft Management Console. There's a couple of those running here. This one is taking 48 meg of RAM, as we can see here. So we have these things, reliability performance monitors running. We can go to its process. It's also running in an MMC, taking fewer resources. CPUs, well, the CPU is going to bounce up and down. So the applications that are running on the system are going to be here. We can end the task here, switch to. Between you and me and the fence post, the end task, sometimes you have to end it multiple times. I've always found it easier to end the process, and since it'll take us to the process, we can go there quickly. The processes that are running are listed here, and we can put them in alphabetic order, reverse alphabetic order, by depending on what we click at, which column we click up here. CPU utilization, increasing memory, starting out here, OOBE out-of-box experience. If you'll recall, let me make this a little bit bigger and let's look at the description here. Initial configuration tools, which is still running on this system. OOBE, if you want the initial configuration screen to come back, the OOBE command, here we go, initial configuration tasks. If you close it till it don't show this window again, ever again, it log on, and oh yeah, I really want it back, OOBE will bring that one back to you. So let's get back to this thing, and now our OOBE is gone, I think. We'll put them in alphabetic order by clicking here, going down, M, N, no O. So services are running, CRSS. One of the ones that's kind of interesting, we can do this. LSAS is the local security authority. Does a lot of different things. If we then right click on these things and go to services, the processes, it'll show us which services are associated with that particular process. And also gives the process ID. Obviously, they're all going to be on the same one. So the processes here again, in the process tree, create a dump file. The set priority we talked about. So let's see if we can go down here and change. Let's try to see if we can change the spool. Set the priority. Let's say that we want it to be above normal. Change the priority of that one. So we change the spools priority, set priority, and it is now above normal, which means it's going to get a little bit higher priority. Real time, probably shouldn't do. Real time's a great way to really lock the system up. The below normal and the low we can use in order to kind of make something work more in the background. The typical priority is going to be normal, so we can change these priorities. Let's see if we can change the service host priority. I want to find one that it's going to tell me no, but it's letting me change all of these, which is not always going to be the case. And I'm going to go back and put them back to normal. So priorities can be changed in the task manager to allow things to run at a higher or a lower priority. The services, same thing here, running stopped. We can right click on it, we can start the service, we can stop a running service, and we can go to the process that's associated with that service, so we can go back and forth between processes and services. Performance, something that you've seen, a snapshot of what's going on with the CPU and memory and all of the little table, the cache, total cached, free, kernel memory, paged, non-paged are all listed right here. Handles, threads, processes. Uptime in minutes, how long it's been up. Page file, how big the page file is, how much of how much. It's a 2 gig page file, and we're using a 536 meg. The thing that has been added here is the resource monitor, which is kind of a handy thing to have. We go back here. It gives us the same information, kind of, sort of, basically, but what it allows us to do is go in here to CPU. What are the demands on the CPU? Disk, what are the demands on the disk system? If I can get it to go into disk. Disk system, and then if you click on the CPU, it'll close the CPU, open the disk. Read and writes, I/O priority, what are the priorities, the response times. If we're having bottlenecks, we can go in here, and this tool will help troubleshoot the bottlenecks. So that's something that's been added that is really kind of a handy thing to have. Let's go back here and let's see if we can go back to our task manager. Networking, what's going on with the networking, local area connection. One of the things that is kind of handy is you say, oh yeah, I've got 100 meg or a gig or whatever. Go in here and look and see what it thinks it is, because the switch may have not recognized that in the auto negotiate. But what's going on with our networking? How much networking are we using? Users, the administrator is the only one here. Log off and disconnect. And if we had somebody else, we could send them a message like, I'm about to throw you off. Disconnect and log off are two different things. Disconnect just simply disconnects the session and leaves all of the running applications running. Log off logs the user off of the system and turns off, disables, shuts down all of the running applications and programs. So if you want to just kind of go away, you can disconnect and you can come back and everything that was running will continue to be running. The other thing that we talked about in there was the reliability and performance monitor. I've already had it open. The performance monitor here, we can add counters, and the counters are specific elements that we want to monitor, and we can have a local computer, or we can also browse. We can go to a remote computer as long as we have the authority to manage that remote computer. Processor, and if you go over here in this list and don't do like I had a student at one time, he thought you could only go down. This thing usually starts about in the middle. It goes up and down. There are hundreds of things that you can monitor on the system. Physical disk, paging file. In the physical disk, we go in here, disk read time, disk write time, idle time, what's going on with the system. The default typically is going to come up as processor utilization. You can add things to it, you can take things away from it. If I wanted to make things go away, I can clear it, remove all counters. We can remove them all. Now we have nothing, and we can go back and start adding our counters. We can also save it. We can create a performance monitor here and then transform that into a data collector set. Yeah, this is what I want. I want the data collector set to collect the data, this particular data, so we can do it that way. The other one was the reliability monitor. You can see this server hasn't been up, so it's got a straight 10 here. Software uninstalls, we really haven't done anything to it. Application failures, no events, hardware failures, those things, what happens, and as things not stable happen to the system, this will go up and down, and then we'll have the ability to click on something here. Driver install was a success here, so this tells us software uninstalls. We actually have done one thing, so we can go back and see what happened, what we did on particular days that may or may not have caused some issues with the system. I think with that, that's about all I want to do in this session. We've taken a look at a number of tools that are incorporated into Windows. Windows gives you a lot of tools that you can use. Don't be afraid to use them. Investigate them. Use the tools. Use them to monitor the local machine and use them to monitor the remote machine. With that, I'm going to stop now, and I will make a data collector set performance monitor video separate from this one, because it's a little bit, maybe a little bit more involved, maybe not a little bit more involved, but we'll do that as a separate one. Thank you for watching.